I've always felt different. I've always seen things, but when I tried to express them as a child, I was always told to ignore it.
There were people that I didn't know that came to me and said, I have this message that I keep getting that I have to deliver to you.
All of a sudden, out of the shadows, a homeless man just jumped right in front of me. And he said, I'm a soul just like you.
I love it.
I wanted to understand the universe and who and what we are and what are we doing here.
Well, we're all part of this amazing soul wave tapping into each other.
This was a major life changer.
You are a light. You have helped me a ton. Thank you.
You've given me the courage to live more from my soul.
Millions of people are awakening. So wake up with Michele Meiche. Be pleased to hear the best-selling authors and experts in the fields of cutting-edge self-help, personal growth, metaphysics, and spirituality. The soul path of awakening. Understand what living awake is.
Woohoo! I always want to say woohoo after that. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Awakenings here. It's great to connect with all of you. Great to be a part of this community, this tribe, this group with you. Put a hello in the chat. Just a little reminder how we roll if you're new. You can ask questions in the chat. You can type in caps. I don't consider it yelling. Or put my name or put Q or question, something like that. Otherwise, you can call in and listen via phone or computer. You can also listen on your computer, and I know a lot of you listen later in the replays. If you want to listen by phone, the call-in number is 347-539-5122, 347-539-5122, and press 1 on the keypad if you want to get on air. If you have a question or a comment or you want a reading, we may do readings all the way through. I think our guest, which is Reverend Frederick, psychic channel, may want to do readings as well. So we will leave that open. Again, 347-539-5122 is the number. I'm getting my yerba mate, getting me a little more tea. Now, the other thing is if you do have a question or a comment, you really need to press 1 on your keypad, so that I know that you want to get on air, because a lot of people listen via phone, and they're at work or whatever, out and about, or they're in the store, they're doing, you know what I mean? So I don't want to, I will if I get like a little feeling, because sometimes I get a little psychic nudge, and I'm like, oh, this person didn't press 1. Or if you do press 1 on the keypad and then you walk away, because that's another thing that happens a lot, people walk away or doing other things, just kind of, I don't know, keep your earpiece in or something so that you're going to hear crinkling because I'm getting my yerba mate tea. You might hear crinkling in the background, and that's what that is. But anyway, yeah, if you just keep your earbud in or something that you can kind of hear, because what happens when you press 1 on the keypad is that it gives me a little signal, so then I can press on the switchboard or whatever it's called, and then you're unmuted, right? So that's what it does. So everybody's naturally muted, and I unmute you. How's that go? How's that? I unmute you. Anyway, again, 347-539-5122 is the number. Press 1 on the keypad. So I'm a little zony right now because I've been doing readings for YouTube today. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to Soul Insights and Tarot, and also Awakenings with Michele Meiche on YouTube, if you would be so kind. But it's good for you. It's good stuff for you. So I'm doing a Starseed reading with the Ascended Masters, and I'm doing part 1 will be on YouTube, where you'll get a lot of information, and then part 2 is for Patreon. So what I'm starting to do, I thought of this before, but I didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like inspired or the vibe. But I'm thinking a lot of my readings are pretty long, and you do get a lot of information, and, that's what people tell me in the comments, that, it's like a personal reading, and, they get a lot of information, and it's really aligns and resonated, and it's on target, it's a confirmation, on and on and on. So what I thought I would do for some of the readings, I'm not going to do it for all, but I will let you know in the Patreon readings. Some of them, what I'm doing is I'm doing the first part, and then I'm doing an extended. And like the ones that I'm doing now, I think the first ones are about 15 minutes or so, 16, 17 minutes. And the reason I'm going to do it on some readings is because just added benefit and feature for my lovely Patreonies, the Soul Path people on Patreon. It also gives me a chance to go in a little deeper, a little bit more. YouTube, a lot of people tend to, they do like longer readings, but I know sometimes you just kind of want to get the message. And I find the people that are on Patreon that I'm working with are really, we're doing deep dives into metaphysics, spiritualism, spirituality, dream therapy, numerology, all this stuff I'm trained in, hypnotherapy, meditation, transpersonal psychology, alchemy. So I'm bringing all of that. So Patreon for me isn't just extended readings. I'm not just doing extended readings, nor do I want to just do extended readings. It's that's going to now be part of it, but it's also a lot about esoteric wisdom and principles and studies, astrology, the occult, but also transpersonal psychology, hypnotherapy, alchemy, meditation, spiritual practice, and spiritual principles. So I have all of that on there. So you have processes, exercises, things for the month, things for the week, channel, for the Soul Path Journeyer tier and Soul Path Seeker. You have channeled information that I get straight from the spiritual hierarchy. Some of you know that I channeled in 2017 all this information about the pandemic and everything that happened. I mean, literally to the vaccine, not being able to travel. So I have some of these earth changes that come through me, so I'm putting those for now on Patreon. They'll always be on Patreon. I can't put them on YouTube because I get censored, and I'll get a strike. I already got a censorship thing. Because the information is controversial, though it ends up being accurate. It ends up playing out in everything, whether stock market, or I could go on and on. But you guys have been with me a while. You've heard. Some of you have worked with me personally. Some of you my workshops or seminars or retreats. So it's just putting it out on YouTube before people are ready to hear it. And at least people on Patreon, they know that that's part of what I'm sharing. That's part of the content. Of course, some people don't want to know. I mean, I got some information on some things that are coming up next year and into 2025, and someone said, I don't want to know. It's like an inconvenient truth. I don't want to really know what's going on. And I'm like, okay, well, but I want to get this information out there. That's part of what I came back here to do on this dimension, on this earth plane, and I've been doing this since age 4. So I love getting it out there, but I've got to find the right peeps, the right audience, the right group, because I don't want to freak people out, but I do want to help people, and like some of my clients, I told them, before the whole pandemic thing, the virus, all of that, I said, you need to work, some of them were considering getting offices, and I said, I wouldn't get that expenditure. You're not going to be able to work in person. You're not going to be able to go in the office. You're not going to be able to have an office. So that's the whole thing. I like giving that heads up. And I had quite a few clients that were not working virtually. Some were working a little bit virtually. And they went ahead and changed the way they were working. Especially some of my private clients, because, the guy, if I'm working with someone for a long time, the guides can be kind of insistent, like, I keep getting the message, even to the point that some of them are like, I know, I don't know. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not about me. This message is coming through. And this particular situation, had this person not listened, they would not have been able to pay their bills. They would have had to get help from people or take a loan out. So I want to be able to offer that if that's something that you're into, and I'm going to extend it, more into, especially as things heat up again, I want to be able to bring this information to people without having to worry about, am I going to get censored? And because some of the censoring is no joke. They cut off your banking. You can't. And some of the stuff that I know, whether it's through the channeled info or ex-FBI Director Ted Gunderson, who I knew and was given information from him. It's not meant to get out there broadly, I guess, is the best way. I mean, it is, but there are those that want to stop that. And things are going to get very critical. Hey, in the chat. Hi, you guys. Yeah, things are going to get very critical. So, I mean, I like a heads up. I don't care if it's something really, kind of scary, but I'd rather know so that I can plan. That's my thing. And so that's where I'm coming from. I was able to change. In fact, I knew this was coming, in the 90s. So I changed the way that I worked. I listen. And that's one of the things I teach people on the Patreon and some of in my workshops. How do you read the signs? How do you know what's coming up? How do you tap into that? How do you know that it's just not your emotions or fear? How do you find that thread, and how do you navigate these changes? And I mean, we're going to go through a lot of disruption and upheaval, but and at the same time, it's going to bring a lot. It already is bringing a lot of opportunity because it's requiring us to go into our genius mindset. I'm sure a lot of you are feeling it already. You're probably getting a little more creative or inspired, or maybe I'll do this, I'll try this, I'll go out on a limb and try this, I'll try that, let me do this. You're thinking differently. You're thinking, what's really important to me? There's going to be a lot of people unplugging from the old design, the old matrix, and creating a new design. That's what many of us are here to do, is help create the new design, the new floor plan, if you will, of how to live. And, some of you are doing that already. But we're meant to come together. This is the great coming together. I was kind of thinking it was going to be last year, but a lot of what I saw last year and predicted is happening this year. But people are really wanting to come together. You're going to see much more stuff about awakening or the Great Awakening or the Awakenings. I had a course out, a year-long course, that I'm going to re-release that I did with De Leon in 2011. 2010, it took me a year to put the course together. And it was all about the Great Awakening. In fact, it was called the Great Awakening. But people weren't ready for it yet. I mean, a lot of people took the course, but it didn't make sense to a lot of people because it was forward thinking. And same with soul-centered living that I have on a platform now that I'm making available for people to do in self-study. It does make a difference if not only have the tools, the information, the insight, the guidance, but also the connection, the community, the support is really important. And I would just say, if you're those of you that are looking for community, try to find one that's it's the most balanced. I guess let's put some Libra energy in there, the Justice card, and also alchemy, Sagittarius. Let's put some Temperance energy, because the changes that are happening, like what happened in 2020, I channeled in 2017. So it took a while. Now some of the channelings are 6 months to a year. They're closer, or 3 months. So some of the changes are not they're gradual. I think that's what everybody has to keep in mind. They're gradual changes, but if you know where things are going, even if it's 5 or 10 years out, and you're still planning on being here, on the earth plane, then you can shift accordingly. And because the parallel systems, communities, economy, the parallel, we're building that now. So anyway, let's get to caller. Let me see, do we have anything in the chat? What's happening? Oh, you want to know, Teresa. Yeah, Teresa definitely, I love it. Teresa definitely wants to know. She is not one of those people that says, I don't want to know. It's too scary. Teresa's like, give it to me, and I'm planning. I'm doing things accordingly. So I sneak some of the information in the pick-a-cards, also in this podcast. And one of the reasons this podcast has not been, because the cabal, I talked very blunt about what's going on and what's coming. I was told by a friend of mine that is, expert and, she gets paid a lot of money with social media, podcasting, and, this is her world. And she said, well, it's probably because I don't have transcripts and I have guests. So the first half of the program, there's a title that goes to what the guest is about. But what's happened is some of the podcasts that go over now to YouTube, I've gotten censored because it's picked up on information that I've said here. So in a way, I always thought, because I had somebody that was trying to help me get on to do YouTube earlier, like around 2009. But now I see, I would not have been able to share all of this that I'm sharing. I would have been not only booted off of that platform, but it could have been kind of dicey. So it's been really a blessing to be here on the audio cast because again, there's less censoring. Okay, let's get to Jay Stylings in the chat, in the sacred space of empowerment room. All right, gang, 347-539-5122 is the number. Press 1 on your keypad if you want to get on air. Hi, you're on air. Hi. I think it's somebody that walked away. 770, you're on air. Okay. I can hear you in the background. Okay, may come back to there. All right, we've got a lot of people listening by phone, so I'm just taking that your people that are listening by phone, if you do have a question or a comment or you want a reading, please press 1 on your keypad. Okay, and you can also ask questions in the chat. Let's see. Jay is saying, hi, everyone. I want to know, too. I especially want to know if my dreams are going to be coming true. I swear I see things coming. Well, that's your answer, Jay. Yeah. It's almost fantastical. How many of you have been feeling the energies of late? And I talked about it last week. I think it was Void called in. With Paula was here, and I was talking about the cave, and I've been doing watching these cave diving videos and deep sea water videos, and then I've been dreaming of that. But then it's opened me up to connect to the subconscious. I've been connecting in through people that are on the other side, which happens a lot, but I've been doing a lot of lucid dreaming. And it's just interesting. And I know when that kind of stuff starts happening that we're about to have some kind of big shift, not just individually, but collectively. I think in one of the readings, I think it was the August pick a card that I did, Soul Insights and Tarot on YouTube channel. I talked about August, that we would be watching the news. There'd be a lot of stuff, something going on, or a few things internationally that we would be watching the news. And I haven't been watching regular TV, very little. I've been a lot on YouTube and a lot of podcasts. And cave diving videos. Oh gosh. So, even some of my stupid little shows. I just haven't the vibration. Every now and then I do kind of stupid show. Well, I've been watching. I picked it back on Netflix, I think, and Amazon, some espionage, spy, in my international shows and films. I've kind of watched a few of those, but I've been doing a lot of cave diving. Athena's in the house, too, in the sacred space of empowerment. Hello. Oh, I love this. I even had a dream about a zombie apocalypse. I know it sounds super weird. Oh, Athena, you're listening by phone, too. Yeah, Jay. Well, the thing is, and it's funny because I talked about this in one of the readings I did today for Patreon. I did a deeper dive into how to discern whether it's your emotions. I know when 9/11 happened, I had visions literally of me being sucked out or other people sucked out of planes for 2 weeks before. It was about a month. And I was set to be traveling. Some of you know this story. I was going to be traveling that day and going actually back east. Now, I tell my friend, when I told people that and 9/11 happened, they're, you wouldn't have been in it. Yeah, I would have been in it. I may not have been on the plane, but I had clients that were stranded days, weeks, and even a month. They could not get back to their home. And hotels were... so I knew something was happening. I was tapping into that, and so I canceled my flight. And I remember even a well-meaning coach that I was working at the time, I won't say her name, she thought I was under a lot of stress. And so did a few people around me, said, you're having these nightmares. And I said, no, they're not nightmares, they're visions. And I said, and no, I don't have stress about flying. In fact, I love turbulence. I love roller coasters. No, that's not my thing. I'm getting this message because something is going to be happening. Something's going on, and I am canceling my flight. Because I would have been right in the middle of it all. And but then, you looked online, there were quite a few people that had these kinds of premonitions, whether about going in the towers or coming back earlier, or they forgot something and had to come home, or some people had these kinds of dreams. So it is very possible, Jay, like you're talking about in the chat, it is very possible. I think it was Jay. Was it Jay or Athena? It is very possible. Yeah. The thing is when it gets filtered, and that's why I teach this in my workshops and also on Patreon, like how do you discern? Because some part of it may be fear, may be our own fear, or we're going to go through our own, transition, so you always have to take that into account. And those kind of also premonition dreams usually have, they're very, what's the word? There's a kind of a peace, a peace and calm. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah, you'll feel that kind of when you have these visions. Now, when you pop into the, what do you call it? The higher self aspect, when you kind of handle the lower self or ego part, or the regular part of it. How's that? Our avatar part. When you handle that part, you can kind of get to it. Because believe me, when I was seeing things, it's almost like a movie. Like when I was seeing things and I was seeing riots, I was seeing people in the fatigues in 2017, and I was telling clients of mine, I was telling friends, some people were like, what's happening? I don't want to know. And I was saying, you're going to be required, you won't be able to travel. But I saw this underground economy starting, and I said people are going to buy things and give it to other people or buy supply. And that we still have that. There's certain things that I channeled between 2017, 2018, and then in 2021 that haven't happened yet. So we still have some of the things that are going to be, going on. But Jay, to your point, apocalypse also has to do, it's not just like a disaster. It also is a supernatural or a disclosure. Okay, it's we always think that it has to do with something. It's something prophetic happening. So I definitely feel that many people have that ability right now to tap into the apocalyptic nature. You know, the awakening is a type of apocalypse, if you will, because it disrupts the old order. And so that's part of that apocalypse, is that disruption of the old order of things. So you may, you could be picking that in your dreams. And then again, it's not fear, because if you're picking this up, you're either picking up from the collective unconscious, your own self, your higher self, or if you work with guides, to prepare. And so it's not like, oh, everything's going to be bad. Like I didn't see, again, if you're getting messages, it's about being able to prepare. And we have to get people past the hump of not wanting to know. That's part of the problem. People don't want to know. Let's see what the derivation of apocalypse, because I know I had looked it up a while ago, but I know that it's not just something tragic. Now, from the Judeo-Christian lens, it is something, kind of ominous and scary. It means revelation, from the Church Latin, apocalypsis, revelation. From Greek, apocalyptian, uncover, disclose, reveal. So we are in apocalyptic times where there's a lot that's being revealed. That's part of the awakening, where you kind of wake up from the sleep and go, oh my God, I was told this, I was told that. That's not true. This is true. That's not happening. This is happening. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, we are in the apocalypse. We are in a apocalypse, I would say, not in the, because there's many apocalypse. And that's part of the Great Awakening, is to awaken and see what's really going on. What's really going on? And what do you want to do about it? Where do you fit in? How do you fit in? So that apocalypse brings a disclosure, right? It brings a revealing, or, an unraveling from what was hidden. And it is meant to dissolve structures, whether they're relationship structures, societal structures, business structures, creative, whatever the structures are. And so to some degree, we're going to have that in our own life to free up, to ultimately build in a way that is, in this part of the game, more soul connecting. Because we are in the soul alignment portion of the awakening. So the more you're able to align to your soul and understand your soul, the better you'll fare. No matter what level or wherever you're living, you will fare better if you could understand your soul and connect into that part of you. If you're still holding on to the values of the old way of being, you see, it's all been leading. The whole idea of the simple living, or the little, what is it, the little house kind of movement, small, tiny homes. Now, that doesn't mean, you have to live tiny, have a small home. But where are the excesses? It was there in the pandemic. And by the way, I totally channeled where that came from, how it happened, and now that is out on regular news stations. Just saying. But it's looking at the true values for you. What do you really value? What do you really want on a soul level? That truth and that meaning. So it's even in that pandemic, it was about, they kept saying essential. Now, remember, everything on the earth plane, it's changing. But it's always about the surface. We get the surface, just like in astrology, in the astrological signs, or the way a planet expresses. We always have a lower, a mid, and a higher octave, or a low, mid, higher expression, right? So somebody could get in an argument, and they could have a very low expression of how they're triggered, how they respond. Someone might get triggered and then respond in a way that diffuses the argument. That would be the middle. And then another person may just someone's yelling and screaming at them, and they just kind of get quiet and listen and say, do you want to talk now, or should we talk later? Should we take a break until we cool off and talk? Or I'll come back when you want to talk, or I understand you're upset. You see the difference? Everything in life is on that tier. That's the hierarchical aspect of creation and expression of creation. So right now we're getting a lot of lower level, very surface symptoms of the awakening. You can see that in the identification. And that's a whole nother that's a whole nother topic that we'll get into at some point. But just to say, you're going to see a lot of the lower or the surface meaning of awakening and what it means to be awake or live awake, until people are able to dial down deeper into what does it mean to them. What is their soul? What does it mean? It doesn't mean don't eat meat. It doesn't mean eat meat. It doesn't mean wear this, wear that. It doesn't mean to do yoga. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't mean, those are all interesting, nice, beliefs and ideas. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with your individual soul. And what is your soul blueprint? What is your soul signature frequency? What is the frequency that of joy and commitment to your life and you having a meaningful life? So it's about getting to your blueprint, not Susie's or Johnny's or Maria's or Yvonne's or Bob's or Richard's. Not Kardashian and Vanderpump Rules. Not the president, not the vice president, not the model, the top model, not the top chef. Do you see what I'm saying? We have all these prefab that everybody's been trying to fit in. And so, yes, there will be an apocalypse on that. And you're seeing it now. You're seeing it with the advent of people doing more on their own, but they're still kind of copying because that's safer to do, and we don't yet have enough resonance yet. That's going to start next year, beginning of next year, where people are going to even take more chances on their individuality, on their self. Let's see, what do we got here? All right, got a caller. Okay, so if you have, let's see, I guess some of you are just listening. Hi, you're on air. Hello. Okay. All right, let's see. Hi, you're on air.
Oh, hi, Michelle. This is Sunray.
All right. Hello. Yeah, good. How are you?
Happy day after Lionsgate portal. I'm doing great.
Yes, Lionsgate, but even more important, it's the Sirius Orion alignment and the sun aligning to Sirius star, the dog star.
Oh, the dog star.
Yes, Sirius. You
dog
notice
or dark?
Sirius. Dog, like woof woof.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you notice how dogs have become more prevalent, prominent, more because as Sirius became more prominent in the sky for a longer period of time. Sirius has to do with service. So people that come from that planet are the light workers, came here to do service. Well, the representation of that is the service that the dogs, the animal beings, the doggy beings, all animal beings, but specifically dogs that are teaching us about energy, how to connect into the energy, feel the vibes, trust the vibes, and telepathy. Because if anybody has a dog and you have a good connection with a dog, cats too, though, but they're very telepathic. So you can really hone up on your telepathic skills. So, yeah, that portal stays open about July 28th to about between the 12th and 15th of August. So there's
so we're still in it.
Oh, yeah, you still have. Yeah, the apex is on the 8th. And what's funny, let's keep it real. The real 8/8 was like 8 to 2015, right? However, and it's true, because there's the strict astrologer part of me goes, there really is no 8/8. Even though I posted something for that, I did pick a card. Because what I realize is even all the aspects that we have, they're not real until we make them real. Do you see what I'm saying? Anything that's on the planet that affects us has some kind of group agreement. So that 8-8 portal is getting more and more and more, right? Because 2015 was an 8-8-8. And really in the spirit realm, there's just, everything is happening. There's just, we need markers. So I would say that 8-8 portal is getting more and more and more important. And it is a marker. I know I had an amazing day before and the day of. The day of was just off the charts. And I had a deep healing session. Yeah, shout out to Dr. Griffin, great chiropractor. I had this amazing adjustment. I think it's becoming more and more important because we as a collective are tapping into that energy frequency, that portal, and we're reinforcing it as a portal, right? I mean, think about it. The cave diving I've been doing, what I see, they have cave explorers. The cave isn't there. It's there, but it isn't known until someone explores and says, hey, this cave is here, and it's a great cave to go down. It's a great cave to swim in.
Right.
So,
right. I assimilate it like when you expand the bubble, and you kind of expand your capacity almost to bring in that light in a way.
Yeah, and we're all vibing
energetic
at the same time.
bubble.
Yeah, and we're all vibing on this at the same time, so we're reinforcing that bubble and what it means. So
I like that.
I always do this with you, Sunray. What's your question? Sunray brings starseed energy. Okay. Hey, Sunray.
I just wanted to call you and let you know that, just give you an update. I called a while ago about that crystal, my rose quartz necklace I was trying to look for.
You found it.
And sure enough, I found it. Yes.
Great. Oh, my God.
It was in a bag behind a moving box. I was moving this box.
Remember I said boxes, and you would put it there, you packed it. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh! Was it closed? Because I kept seeing boxes, and I go, you put it somewhere like where you were packing, so not to forget it. And,
it was in my room the entire time. just hidden away somewhere, I guess.
Oh my God.
I'm kind of, like I mentioned, getting ready to make that next move again, and so it popped up at the right time, and it was just around my birthday on the 25th of July. So I was really excited to see it, and it was part of my Barbie outfit because it's pink.
Oh, yes.
So it was just in time.
Oh,
but
perfect.
I wanted to thank you so much.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I love it. Oh, thank you for sharing that. That is, I could see it. I could see it crammed in, and I'm like, it's by the box. There's all these boxes, and I think you put it there to not lose it. That was my thought. Was like, okay, I'll get to it when I open it, so I don't want to lose it. And yeah, well, you didn't lose it.
Yeah, I did. Sometimes they're crystals. They decide to wander off and be on their own journey. I recognize my tools as beings in themselves. Instead of something that I'm possessed over, that is my possession. I totally accept that. There are some crystals that come into my life, and then the next day they're just gone. For whatever reason. And so it's whatever frequency it wants to then be a part of or heal. So it's fluid. All right,
that's true.
Michele, big hug. I love you.
Big hug. Love you too. Glad you found it.
Day.
Good. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so what do we got? Let's see. Deceased. Oh, my gosh, Athena in the chat. You had a dream of deceased cousin. Let's see. Jay Styling. J. It's about you and a few others that were awake. The zombies were trying to touch us. I was trying to avoid them as I remember it. Well, that sounds, I mean, zombies aren't the most cute bunch. So that may be a message of what you're kind of wanting to avoid, a certain, type of situation or person or relationship. And when I say this, by the way, because we are in the split, the split that's happening, it's not to isolate or point fingers like, oh, they're not as awake or aware. What it is because in the old paradigm there was so much conditioning about having to fit in to a certain narrative. There's so much now about not fitting in. If you're really aligned and getting aligning to your soul, there's nothing to prove anymore. You don't have to fit in, and so it's like you don't have to go with a certain group, or you can just recognize a certain group or certain activity or certain person or certain type of relationship isn't for you. And so you'll find other ways of connecting with more and more that are more of resonance. So the soul alignment is a lot about resonance and coherence. Resonance, baby. I talk, though, if any of you want to dive deep into that on my website, soulplayground.life, get the MP3, Understanding the Universal Laws and Activating the Law of Magnetic Attraction. That's the key, activating it. And the more we're in a resonance to our soul, the more we activate the law of magnetic attraction in alignment with our soul. Because we're always attracting. We're always creating. We're always attracting. It just depends what, to what degree, what level, what alignment are you attracting. So a lot of you are going to find you're a little more picky about what you bring into your life. I keep seeing a lot of 8s lately. Is there a message about relationships for me? Well, 8s have a lot. 8 is karma or dharma. It's also about the soul alignment, because if you put the 8 on its side, it's the infinity sign, right? And if you put the 8 vertical, as you see the 8, it's about the lower self and the higher self aligning, right? Or the avatar you, right? The icon you with the driver you, if you will, motivating aspect of you from the soul. So there could be a lot of work to do, work on yourself, work in life. 8 has a lot to do with structure and form. When you look at 8 cycles in numerology, this is why I tell people a lot. And in fact, we had that master numerologist on, Jesse. Let me see his book here. We talked about it. I don't know if you listened to the podcast and laughed. When I'm doing numerology for people, doing house blessings, house clearings, and doing the numerology, I tell people, if at all possible, do not get a house that ends in an 8, or 8 is the predominant, the core number, because it will cost you a lot. A lot of money and a lot of work. Where is his book? I don't see. Oh, here it is. Nope, that's not it. Oh, All About Numbers. That was him. All About Numbers, Jesse, Kalsi, Kalsi. We follow each other on Insta. But he and I laughed about it because, that is his total thing. I've been just studying it for probably, 20, 25, maybe 30 years. But we laughed because 8 requires effort. If you think of the 8s in the tarot, especially 8 of Pentacles. Think of 8 of Swords, 8 of Pentacles, 8 of Wands. You get some movement, but usually there's a lot to do, right? 8 of Swords, the mental realm. So 8s are usually you're working on yourself, or you're working with others, or it could be work on the physical plane, or just a lot of work to do, or you're doing a lot of inner work as well. But it's work that pays off. So it can bring monetary gain, because it can bring abundance, it can bring a level of freedom. 8s in numerology that with cycles a lot of times are about working on a pattern. So the next cycle, which is a 9 pattern, 9, you can free up from that pattern or that conditioning. So I hope that kind of brings you. 8 is Saturn. That's another thing. That's why I said it's Saturn, because it has to do with learning a lesson, right? Toil, structure, form, work. Saturn is all about work. So 8 is the number of. You're right, Tosh. Yeah, Saturn. I was going to say that, but I wasn't. I just saw in the chat you put that. Yeah, but that's why it's like working on something, which is very Saturnian, to put in the hard work. Or usually when you get an 8, especially individually, when I see people in 8s a lot, there's usually something that they're going to be completing in the next cycle, and a lot of times it has to do with some kind of emotional pattern or belief that's either been limiting all along or has come to a conclusion. It's done. It's outlived its purpose or necessity or its usefulness. And so the key at 8 is to kind of learn the lesson and free up, because the next cycle wants you to transition out of that narrower view. All right, let's see. We got, 770. That person is still holding. Did you have a question? Hi, you're on air.
Oh, hi. Hi, Michelle. This is Christy.
Christy.
How are you?
Hey, Christy. Hi. Good.
I'm good. Hope you are too.
I am great.
I don't even... Good. Gosh, I don't even know. Maybe I'll just ask the question because just thinking about picky soul and aligning to soul, but I have an opportunity and I don't even know if I would get it, for an apprenticeship. And I was just curious if you have any insight about that. I don't know if I should keep my time free or if I should really look into this opportunity.
I heard right away look into it, but don't decide yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So feel it out. I guess I just want to make sure it's not coming on yet.
Yeah, because I have we're going to talk about it in a couple of weeks, and I haven't really told her anything, but I just wouldn't want to disappoint her with my time constraints, because I do like that variety, and I have elderly parents I'm helping out, as well as, people on the other side of the country. So,
Christy, that's why I'm saying I'm not getting say yes yet. You can explore it.
Yes.
Exploring doesn't necessarily mean you have to take something. But by the way, the reading that I'm doing today, and I'm going to try to get it done. So, I will get it done for Friday, because I'm going to be curious to see what you say. Well, because I'm going to put part 1 on YouTube, part 2 I'm going to put on our Patreon, Soul Path community.
Yep.
The reading I did, and I'm not going to say what it is. I hate to do this, but the reading that I did, totally talked about this exact situation. And do boundaries, guilt, getting rid of a pattern. I tuned into the Ascended Masters. So
Yeah.
Yes, and when you just said that, I'm like, oh my God, this is so in alignment, because so be curious if you pick that one, that soul story.
Yeah, I will keep you posted. Yeah, because it's one of those things. I really like the opportunity for freedom and travel, but I really like this person, and we have a nice connection, and it might not be this full thing, but it could be something else as well, because I know I'll have her in my life at some degree.
Yes, and
but I don't know how full.
That's why I'm saying, and this is for everyone, check things out, feel it out, because the soul and spirit realm likes both and. It's not either or.
Yes.
I sense with you probably won't take it, but there's something about us exploring things, because the soul likes to explore. But when we explore something, we've been taught, well, don't do it if you don't think you want to do it, or only call them back if you really want to. Well, no, maybe I just want to call and feel it out, and now I'll get a feeling about something. You know what I mean? So I would say don't be in your head about it. Follow through and feel it out. But I think you already know your answer. But there could be something else you do with that person or someone else, or maybe it's to a limit, or maybe it's something completely not what you think it's going to be, because you really don't want that. It may be something else. You see what I'm saying, that ends up coming in.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I'm just going to I have another week or two to really meditate on my own and figure things out. But I'm like, I'll just hit one today. And if you get to me, great. And if not, that's okay too. But you did. And that will give me some, definitely a starting point. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Keep in contact.
And
talk
I'll watch
to the person about it, but you
yeah.
don't have to make a decision, right?
Yes.
Because you can't really make it.
That's
I guess this is what I'm hearing from your higher self as I tune in. And this is something you're learning, I feel, is what I'm being shown. You can't really so you're trying to make a decision mentally, but to get into soul alignment, you need to feel it. And sometimes to feel something, we need to talk to the person or show up at the cafe and have a chat. And then we go, oh, no, that's why I felt
Yeah,
that.
That's kind of what I felt. It was one of those things
right.
I wanted to put myself out there at least and say, I'll learn a little bit more about it because it's always been a thought in my head. So now I just need to feel it out and say, would this work or not in my current place in life? So,
exactly.
But I would hate to miss it and just think, I missed my opportunity. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I think you're going to gain something by having the conversation or meet up or whatever you're going to do. I feel like there's something there very dynamic, which I'll be curious to see what it is. But, I feel like there's something very dynamic for you in that interchange that we can only get by intuition or by feeling through the energy and motion, the emotional body. And I think all of us are getting, that part of us honed up more. And it just means we aren't going to figure things out as much mentally on the mental realm. The mental faculty, the beautiful, important it is, that can be, the planning stage or, but trusting
that's okay.
that
That's what I'm trying to, I'm trying to, it's really the last few years really trying to get more with that intuition flow than just the checklist or the logical mental. So that's all kind of lining up. Well, thank you very much.
You are welcome, and we do have our guests coming on. I'm not sure. Maybe they'll do some readings, too. Let's see what happens. Good to hear your voice, Christy.
Good to hear you. Talk to you soon, and I will keep listening. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right, Soul Lights, if you didn't get your question answered yet, just kind of hang out. We're going to bring our guest on, Reverend Sue Frederick. Channeler, psychic channel, receives wisdom from guides to help people heal from grief and also find their soul's purpose. And we're going to also talk a bit about her book, I think, Through a Divine Lens. So let's see what she has going on here. Hi, Sue.
Hi, nice to be on your show.
Oh, likewise. Fellow channeler. Hello. Hello. Gosh. Where to start? Well, let's start. Usually I get background people. Well, let's get a little background on you so I know, and then also those that are listening can know a little bit about you. And I always like to get kind of the first awakening and then the next awakening to what you're doing or how that happened. What was that revelation for you? On your path. I find that interesting, and so do the listeners. It's and inspiring as well.
Well, I was always very in touch with my intuition as a kid. I was way more right brain dominant than left brain, but I grew up in a Southern Catholic family and was taught right away that was not a good thing, and I should not keep sharing my precognitive dreams at the breakfast table, and they would come true later on. So this was the 50s, so I was taught to shut it down the best that I could in order to survive here. But then as much as I tried to avoid my true path and tried to fit in and be normal, when I was in my 20s, I was leading outward bound mountaineering groups across the Colorado Rockies, teaching people to overcome their fears and climb 14,000-foot peaks and all of that. And I was in love, married to a beautiful mountain climber man, Paul Frederick. And he and I shared the idea that religion was not the answer, that spirituality was. and yet it wasn't the focus of our lives. And then suddenly, at the age of 33, he was diagnosed with colon cancer and they gave him 2 weeks to live. But I was really determined that we were going to heal him because, we were these outward bound teachers. We were teaching that you could overcome any challenge that came your way. And so I thought that the lesson was I was supposed to overcome the challenge of this illness and help him have this cure. And we did alternative healing, conventional healing.
Right.
But the hardest and most important lesson on earth, as you know, is surrender to the higher lesson, the higher soul agreement, the higher purpose. So
even if it doesn't look like what we thought. Oh, God.
Right, exactly.
Right, Sue?
So he died in my
gosh.
arms. A year later, he died in my arms, and the whole year of that journey was my spiritual awakening. It was 1979, 1980. I was 29, 30. And his death and his final months were so spirit-led, and he showed me his soul when he left his body, came back immediately to teach me how it all worked in the divine. And that was 40-something years ago, and so that was probably my biggest awakening.
That is huge, and that is, I'm glad you mentioned this, because a lot of people don't like to talk about this part, especially when you start, you're consciously on a path and you're manifesting the bigger picture beyond our big picture, the
right.
soul's path, right? And sometimes it is something, because in our society, and I'm sure you ran into this, I know I have, except for those that really go on the other side, there isn't this judgment, but that if, they're less evolved because they do this or they do that or they got sick or they died at this time. And it's like, no, there's such
right.
a,
that's
a
the higher
purpose.
lesson, actually. The
right,
things
that is
that you're saying. Right. And
yeah.
Michele, what I think people like you and I learned, probably, I don't know your story, but probably it was early on for you as well, is that this is not a universe where we just come to party. It is a universe that our soul drops into for a purpose of soul growth and helping others evolve, helping our own soul evolve and others in our collective evolve. And that takes pain sometimes. It takes surrender to higher lessons. It's not an ego-driven world as much as we want to think it is.
Oh, boy, that is so true. Wow, No, I remember at one point in my healing path, and I was doing a lot of, it was quite early because I was working with a lot of AIDS and cancer patients and some healings. I was a facilitator for some amazing healings.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh my God, just rave review. And then my life personally, like financially, got a hit. I'll never forget because I was living in Chicago for like 4 years, and it was cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just come back and I was like cursing, like, I'm doing all this work, and it's freezing out. Why am I still? I was like, what is going on? And then I was like, wow, and that really kind of woke me up too.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we do here, no matter how amazing, it's so small, and that great gift, which illness, I don't know your thought on this, but what I have found is, well, it is a form of self-expression or soul expression and creativity to some degree, and it is such a huge learning tool. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I always tell my clients that we choose our soul, not our conscious mind, will choose an illness for the purpose of growth and expansion. And what I learned from Paul in that journey of his is that his soul had some patterns of anger that he had not been able to release in several lifetimes, and when he came into this lifetime, that anger continued because he had a very dogmatic Christian minister father whom he disagreed with, and so that anger continued, and his soul chose this illness as a way of breaking him open to the higher lesson of love and forgiveness, to break that negative pattern of anger And he did. By the time he crossed through this,
wow.
Yeah, by the time he crossed through this terrible illness of his, he was pure love and pure light.
Wow. That reminds me of a dear client of mine, Angela, who I was just thinking about yesterday. So she must be around. I always see butterflies. And she went through a lot of trauma, and she got, lung cancer. And but towards the end, because she said, I'm not going to stay. I know you may not want to hear that, but I'm not going to stay. And she goes, now everything that we worked on, I feel it now. I feel all the love.
Yeah.
Because she was estranged from her family. And so friends were around her, people that she hadn't seen in over 20 years moved to help her, move near her. And she could open it up. Let me ask you, do you think, is it for both of us? I know that impacted me so much.
Yeah, it was for me too. Yeah, I made
that agreement with Paul. Do you think it's more for us, or do you think it's more for both of us?
I made the agreement with Paul. I made the agreement with Paul before the lifetime begins, and so did his parents and all of our loved ones. We made that agreement before the lifetime began, because it was going to break us open, and it certainly broke his father open, the dogmatic Christian minister.
It did.
Definitely brought him into his heart more, opened his mind. And for me, it was the greatest soul agreement on my life to wake me up to become who I came here to be, this intuitive numerology spiritual teacher for people. Not that I did that the next day. It took me a while to get there. But it was my moment of realizing, I came in here to share everything Paul is showing me from the divine realms. But I had to find, I was 30 when he died. I had to find my footing. And it was 1980. It's not like you could go be an energy healer or a numerologist or an intuitive in 1980 and be embraced and make your living from it. So I gave it away for free while I worked on my writing career, and I actually became successful with that, VP of content for magazines and websites eventually. And then my soul and my guides said, okay, you've been hiding. We gave you a little time to regroup, to heal, and to realize that you can stay on Earth. Now you got to step up. And at that moment, I was in a reinvention point, all outlined perfectly by my numerology chart. And was a single mom with a young daughter, and I was about to lose my home. And my spirit guides and God and said, you've got to do what you came to do, make your living that way. And I said, but I'll lose my home. And they said, well, as long as you think that way, you'll never get started, you'll never make it work. And I, in one weekend, built a website, started writing my first book. I've written 11 books since then, and started seeing clients. And magic happened like it does for all of us when we're finally on our true path.
Wow. Oh my God, love that. And I know what you mean, similar to me without the internet. People don't realize, you could go to metaphysical bookstores, maybe a health food store, little.
1980 was just, the dark ages of so many things, right? And the 80s were the decade of money and greed and power, because 8 is the number of money and power, using it for good or bad. So suddenly here I was, this intuitive, sensitive, spiritual person, and all I knew was I had to figure out how to make money, and it wasn't going to be from my true gifts. But it was in my 90s that everything shifted, and I was able to step up and do it.
Yeah, that was your transition point.
Yeah.
What do you think, going through that with someone, a couple things. Do you think we both learn, in other words, the person that's going through it has their learning, and then those of us that are around have our learning?
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
Question both. Okay. And then question 2, what would you suggest, or what do you tell the people you work with, you help with in this area, of how to, I guess, kind of open up to that mindset?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm very blessed because over the years I've been guided to get involved with what I think is the most powerful group of human beings on earth, this nonprofit organization called helpingparentsheal.org. And my clients now are mostly grieving parents, grieving moms especially.
Oh, wow.
And this nonprofit is run by a woman that I think is a true earth angel, Elizabeth Boisson. She lost 2 children, and this was back in the early 2000s, and she decided to devote her life to helping grieving parents wake up to the fact that their children were alive and well in the divine, and that on some level they had agreed to this experience as part of their learning. And I love this organization. It's the first place I've ever felt totally in alignment with in my work. And so most of my clients come to me and their heart has been broken, devastated in a way that I think is the greatest devastation on earth, to lose a child. But the good side of that is it finally gets us to surrender what we know and finally say, I'm ready to open my mind, to get rid of my beliefs, perhaps get rid of my religious dogma, and really start learning, where did my child go? How are they communicating with me now? Why am I still here? Those questions get us in alignment with our past. But many people who go through grief, and everything is free will here, they just get lost in their pain, for a long time. But I always tell people it doesn't matter how long you're lost in your pain if you finally just take a breath and look up to that higher awareness, ask to see it differently, ask to understand it from the soul level. That prayer is always answered.
Okay. So really ask to see it from a soul level. Wow, that's, I guess we really have to always kind of slow down, tune within, pray, ask, whatever that, terminology people are comfortable with, right?
We have to, and here on earth, all we want to do is look outward, not quiet the mind, not turn inward, not listen to God consciousness. That's terrifying to so many people. That's why so many people you meet will say, oh, I can't meditate. Oh, yes, you can. You just have to sit down, repeat mantra, quiet the mind, and receive, and it will be there for you. And I lived in a Buddhist ashram because I wanted to learn that intense, beautiful form of meditation. We would have like a 7-day silent meditation retreat where you couldn't even speak to anyone in the dining hall or in the cabin at night. And it was transformative. You totally leave the human mind and you align with the God consciousness. You realize at the end of that week that you never want to talk again. It is so much better to be in tune with the universe.
Recommend, I've done that as well. I recommend at some point, if people have that inkling, to kind of to do something like that. It's very powerful, and even for a day or a weekend, if people can, do that, right? It really holds your listening to them, as you were saying, listening to spirit.
Right.
So I'm curious about this book, Through a Divine Lens. Now, this is your most recent one, right? You said you have 11. And, by the way, so people are coming in the chat and listening. Let's see, the best website, you have SueFrederick.com, right?
SueFrederick.com,
Okay, in case people want to get a little more info while we're chatting here. Tell us a bit about
that. So that book was inspired by a vision I had in 2014, where by 2014 I'd already been years teaching these grief-shifting workshops where I would take a room full of grieving people and guide them through some processes, meditations, automatic writing, numerology, understanding soul agreements, and then they would have their own personal communication with their departed and then write it through automatic writing. And the most amazing thing, when you see the transition of a 3-day workshop where the first night everyone shares their devastating story of losing their loved one, and by the third day they're going, I've heard from my son and he wants me to get out of bed and start living my life, and they have a whole different perspective, but they got to it, not having, I love mediums. I have many friends who are mediums, but we can all connect to our departed. And once a person does that, it is so powerful. So I flew home. That was at Kripalu in Massachusetts, a big retreat center. And I flew home back to Colorado, and I was exhausted, and I got really sick, like 104 degrees for days. This was before COVID even, but it was just a devastating virus of some kind. And on the third night, I was lifted out of my body and shown the earth from a distance and shown all of these lights shooting up from earth, really piercing the darkness of the universe and then piercing and covering the darkness of the planet one by one. And they were showing it to me, and it was in movement as I watched this stream of light moving around the earth, filling in all the dark places. And the angels and the guides were holding me, and they said, Sue, in the next few years on earth, it's going to get very crazy, chaotic there. It's going to get painful for everyone, including you. And you have to be one of the teachers who explains that the light is always winning, no matter how it looks when we're down in the details of the human life. And they just kept pounding that into my consciousness. The light is always winning. The love is always winning, no matter how it looks on earth. And I woke up, and I was trying to put it into words, and I was still sick, and finally my daughter, who knows I'm a writer, I've written since I was a child, she put the laptop on my lap, and I was able to sit there and basically download this book through a divine lens. And it was that whole message of finding the light and seeing the divine order in everything we face, including the crazy world that we're finding ourselves in today.
Yeah, sometimes I myself do this and share, with others as well. Sometimes you just have to bump up to the metaphysical. You got to go in the spirit where it's can't understand it from the right. Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, that's the only way. You just can't
Go ahead. Michelle, before 20, my vision came in 2014, and I thought the world was doing pretty darn good. I felt like, okay, things are manageable here, things are okay, and then I watched things just completely implode over the next few years, and they don't seem to be really getting better. It feels like our world is really divided right now in a way that I've never seen, and I'm in my 70s, and I lived through the 60s, I lived through all of that time, and I've never seen anything like where we are today. So I'm so grateful that I can go into my meditation, into my communication with Spirit and say, remind me, lift me up above this, show me that the light is always winning, the love is always winning. And that's always their message, always. And so I used to be a journalist, right? I loved watching the news, reading the news, and now I can't go there because it pulls me down into fear, pulls me down into anger. The minute we do that, we're lost.
Yeah. It's also such a limiting view. It's so, and then it swings. They're so sure about something, and they're way over on one side, and then days, weeks, months later, and they swing the other. I mean, it's really like you have to be like a human pendulum that somebody else is swinging you back and forth.
And the yet, one thing, Michelle, it's perfect. It's perfect because we're learning to get out of the head. This is the awakening that humanity is needed, that no longer can we believe that if I get all the ideas right and do all the research and have all the knowledge that I can change other people's mind. That paradigm is way gone. Now, the ultimate lesson here is the original lesson of Jesus Christ, by the way, when he was here as one of our enlightened teachers, was he said, I give you a commandment that is more important than all the others, and it is to love one another. Yeah. And here we are, where this is all that's left for us to do here, is to find that love and compassion for each other, even when we're on diametrically opposed viewpoints and opinions.
Well, you just said it, and that was going to be my question to you, since you lived through the 60s. I wasn't there, but what I've read and what I've assessed, I think a lot of differences to what we're going through now. But one, if we bring it back into the 60s, and even earlier, let's say, is that people stayed in the polarized. I feel like people that seem different on the outside are coming together. And I always joke and say, the spiritual vegan is going to be sitting next to, the Harley Davidson driving Southern trucker with the, California Twinkie or something, and they're going to get along. They're going to find.
Yeah, that's what has to happen.
Right?
Now. Absolutely.
Which, to your point,
being called
Jesus,
to it.
Yeah,
right.
I feel. Just when you said that, called to it. By the way, I love Unity because I saw that you were a minister there, and I'm
a Unity minister. But you know what Unity teaches, and the reason I decided to go through 4 years of ministry school in my late 60s is because I grew up Catholic, I've studied theosophy, Native American spirituality, Buddhism, Hinduism, everything you can name pretty much I have really immersed myself in to learn. And then Unity teaches what I think is the ultimate principle of God, which is that this is an all-good, all-God universe, and that God is simply a loving consciousness that runs it all and lives inside all of our hearts. And so this principle, I believe, is the most true of all religions.
Yeah.
There's no hell. There's no judging God.
Yeah, exactly.
It is our own mind that wants to believe that.
Yeah. I spent quite a bit of time there. Loved the people, loved the books. I mean, in fact, when I would travel, I would always look for Unity, and then I became Church of Religious Science practitioner at one point, which kind of dovetailed off of Unity. It's good. It's all good, kind of mix it. But I feel like as far as just the kind of bare bones spirituality and maybe tapping into Scripture, that Unity, and of course, in Unity brings, as you know, you studied, it brings in books and teachings from. Yes. It's very diverse, very open, and accepting. But when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, there's some good courses there.
It really helped me reset, Michele, because it was 2017 when I decided, wow, the world has really pulled me into an angry, negative place, and I need to do a spiritual reboot. Even though I'd been doing my work, for decades at that point, I needed a reinvention, a spiritual reboot. And studying those ministry classes were just exactly what I needed. It just kicked me up above all of this. And it was such a good thing. Like, I was in school in 2020 when COVID came along.
Perfect.
And I'm so glad, because it just kept me in that higher perspective of how do we see this from God consciousness view, from the soul's view. And I love having the name Reverend, because to me it's a soul reminder that I'm here to see it and speak it from the soul.
Yeah. And I'd love that you say about the spiritual reboot, because I feel it's so important that we all do that. Wherever the reboot is needed, that we have that amazing awareness that now is a good time for me to brush up on this, or I need to expand my awareness or my knowledge, or I want to learn more or need to learn more in this. I think that's so powerful. And
well, it's, I can be the role model for that. I was ordained at the age of 71, so.
Yay! Yeah, keep going. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean,
I am.
Right? I know you are, and I love that. I think it's very, inspiring. I mean, in the words of my dad saying, well, hopefully you're learning all the time until you're done. You're dead. There's so much to do and learn. You don't stop at some point,
That's the myth in our culture of retirement, right?
Oh, I know. Retired, like you stop, everything stops, and it's like, no, I mean, so much can just begin at that time.
Like I think the idea that people have in their head of retirement is so backwards, because what they're saying is, I'm going to work at this terrible job for 50 years and hate it, but then I'll have financial security, and then I'll retire and play golf and be happy. We don't get to retire until we cross over. Then we get to be in the realm of love and wisdom and beautiful inner peace and awareness. But here, we're always learning. That's the game here. And so if you're going to give your life and career away for 50 years for something you hate, just for this dream of retirement, you got that wrong. You need to reinvent now.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, too, what I touched upon earlier about the illness. I mean, there's even a lot of research on this, that people that, I'm not saying don't retire. I mean, you can do other things, but people that don't keep active and don't keep something that has meaning and purpose, whether career or consulting and doing something else, usually don't do very well, not just mentally, but emotionally, physically.
Right.
There's usually...
Because we're always here to have a purpose. Our soul comes in with a purpose. And our soul doesn't care if we're 80 or 90. We're still on that path. We're still... My mother's 96, and she's, even though her body is completely, falling apart, her soul is still learning, and becoming aware of things, and that is what life is. It's never, hey, let's just shut down and think we have all the answers. Boy, you'll just get a huge 2x4 nudge if that's your belief.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Boy, that is true. Now, I don't know, Healer, we got people in the chat. If people have a question for you, you open to answering any questions? I know you're a numerologist also.
I'm happy. Here's what it is about numerology. I used to do years ago radio shows where I would just have one caller after another wanting a numerology reading, and do honor the fact that I'm now in my 70s, and so I say I'll only do 2 numerology readers for callers. But after that, I'll answer all questions about pain and grief and all that stuff, whatever they want to ask.
And also, let's just see, through a divine lens, let's see if anybody has any question.
And people can go to Amazon and get my numerology workbook, Sacred Numerology Workbook. It's only $5.99 if they want to calculate their path. And
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So and then plus, on my website, I just lost my AirPod. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
My ear. Okay, good. My AirPod fell out of my ear. Sorry. Plus,
they
on my
always
website,
do that to
I have.
Me. Oh,
I know.
I love them, but the design. And it's a lot of times I'm walking. I've lost more, so I totally get it.
I know. Crazy. But people can go to my website, and I have online courses in numerology that they can take, and I'm always teaching classes, and they're all listed on my website. So there's many ways they can learn about my sacred numerology.
Okay,
and
great.
Yes, I'm willing to take callers.
Now this is a good question because, and it goes to what we were talking about, depth or going beyond the surface. So Healer Medium in the chat is saying my life path is a 6 and I don't feel like I'm that much into home. Is that usually true of a 6? That's kind of a good question.
6, the way I look at 6, it has nothing to do with home. My approach to numerology, in fact, by the way, she could be a 33/6 because I do the birth date addition. Yeah, I do the addition of the birth date 3 different ways. That's why I call it sacred numerology, because if her path adds up to be 33/6 in one of those 3 ways, it means she came to be a spiritual, healer, teacher, to carry that Christ consciousness with her. But the 6, the way I read it, is all about opening the heart, that's the lesson, and learning to sense other people's needs, pain, and feeling, and provide what is needed for community, for world, for the collective. It's not ever one-on-one with these 6 paths. They're always here to bring family, bring neighborhood, bring community, bring the world to a higher awareness. And the challenge of the 6 is that you can be very wounded and hurt by the world because you're so sensitive to what others' feelings are. And so you have to center yourself and not get pulled out of your own spiritual center by other people's needs and pain.
Yeah, I like that too. I read the sub numbers. I know a lot of people don't. They distill it.
Right.
You get a lot of data, even in the so-called master numbers by
right. That's right.
1970. So 2-4 or 24/6. Well, that was an excellent description.
Well, we don't know if she's added it the 3 ways that I teach.
Right.
But anyway, tell her to go to my workbook and she can see it.
No, she
laid
said
out.
that was an excellent. She said that was an excellent description. That was a great question, though, because to me it opens up that there's earlier in the podcast I talked about things in the lower, mid, and higher frequency or octave or understanding or depth, and this is a good example, I think, for our listeners, Sue, is that it's so much more if you really get into harmonizing, love, emotional fulfillment. It has so much more than the house. And then you're right, that bringing together, people.
Yeah. Michele, what we have on Earth right now is that many people, what they know about numerology comes from interactive websites and, people who do it in a very superficial way. And so they don't really understand what their soul mission is. They just get a very superficial reading of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I call it sacred numerology, because the way I go at it is I'm deciphering what your soul chose before this lifetime began and what your soul came to learn and what your soul came to offer to the world. And that comes in from a much deeper perspective, the soul's perspective.
I hear you. I mean, that's the same with, obviously the numerology, but also astrology, tarot, any of these languages of how to read. It's so surface and so, But, I think it's very interesting you mentioning this, because I do see a shift. I was kind of worried around, let's say, definitely around 2011, 2012, but somewhere between 2010 and 2014, 15, I was like, oh, God, people are like, everything was so surface. I don't know if you found this, but I feel there are more people awakening and going, you know what, I want to work with or study somebody that has more training or has more diverse training, or not just took a weekend course and put their...
And Michele, this is the benefit of collective consciousness being in pain. Really, I hate to say it that way, but the political world, COVID, it's made everybody in pain on some level, whether they maybe can't talk to their family members anymore, whatever that division has caused in their life. It has, in many ways, made them seek different and higher answers.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point, yeah. It is, and I guess, until it changes, a lot, we can learn by pain or pleasure, but a lot in the collective or the mainstream consciousness is the pain principle, I think we're learning that we can do it by joy, right? We can do it by joy. We can start doing more and more by joy, but you're right. Definitely that pain factor is there. Oh, Sue, this has been lovely. I have really enjoyed this time with you.
Me too.
Yeah, I really have. Let people know again your website. You have online courses.
SueFrederick.com.
Yeah.
SueFrederick.com.
That's FREDERICK, right?
I-C-K.
E-R.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
E-R. And the newest book is Through a Divine Lens, Practices to Quiet Your Ego and Align with Your Soul. Again, it's all on Amazon. It's also in Barnes & Noble.
Alignment. Oh, love that, Sue. Oh, well, thank you. Such a joy, and I love you sharing your soul gifts. Thanks for sharing them here with us as well.
Thank you so much.
Take care. All right, gang. Okay. Wow, that was great. I love that conversation. Beautiful. You guys did too. Let's see. Healer, medium. Okay, we got a question. Let's see. Not that I'm aware of. I remember that doesn't. It also includes your name reduced to number. The best thing I think for the soul is go by your birth date, the month, date, and year, because you can change your name. Also, other people give you your name. I have found the most accurate, and I agree. I do this very similar, maybe the same as Sue. I don't know, but. You can look at multiple combinations because there's different ways, whether you do it vertically or horizontally, but yeah, the date, the month, and the year, because that is your entrance point. Your timing can be off. Sometimes with astrology, people don't know their time, or the time is off, or you could have been born one place, and then that, may change location. But you always want to use the double, numbers as well. And I did a tarot and numerology course. I think last year we did. I think it was a 6-week course. But yeah, you can go to Sue's site, or if you're next time I do tarot, I'm going to be doing some dream therapy course, dream rituals and dreams, and it was going to weave some tarot, but can weave some numerology in as well. Jay's ready for a class. We're doing it. I'm going to be doing also some past life regression with Grace O. I think we're doing something in September. So I will start up and I'm really drawn again to more of the inner plane work, but also the occult with the tarot, numerology. Maybe I'll do a basic astrology, but astrology I think numerology people can pick up quickly, and people are using tarot as well. And they all correspond, the numerology, tarot, and astrology, as well as the tree of life as well. But yeah, the birth date, month, day, and year, I know you can do your name. You can do the vowels of your name is supposed to be the soul. I should have asked Sue that, but I don't find that. I've had some respect, teachers and authors that I respect that do numerology, that do use your name. I think you can use your name to tap into something about you, right? Because by synchronicity, it is your name. You were given this specific name. However, I really find to really tap into the soul, it's by your birth date. And, of course, that's what astrology goes by, is your birth date and the time you were born and where you were born. So, yeah. So just knowing that, I think if that's something you want to go into, I think you could get a lot. And if you get her book, let me know what you think of it. All right, gang. Please, if you haven't yet, subscribe to Soul Insights and Tarot on YouTube. Also, Awakenings with Michele Meiche on YouTube. We're slow but sure. I just bought some more equipment, gearing up to do the podcast also, to extend it to YouTube. What else? Anything else? Oh, you can connect with me on Insta. And if you do, say hi. Otherwise, I will see you next week, connect with you next week. And remember, if you have any topic suggestions, guest suggestions, you can email me at awakeningspodcast@gmail.com. or connect@soulplayground.life. Either of those two. But preferably Awakenings Podcast. If it's all things Awakenings, awakeningspodcast@gmail.com. Other ways to get in touch with me are in the description box of this podcast. So, gang, as always, continue to shine your light, share your insights, and keep awake.
Awakenings broadcasts every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Pacific Time. Archive shows available on iTunes. For continued awakened conversations and insights, join the Awakenings group on Facebook. And check out Michelle's blog at soulplayground.com. And keep awake.